knowing this is a low status, not understood, low paid job, the sense of we have to prove ourselves to the outside world, and how oftentimes this can come out in ways that we make more needless work for ourselves.
Hi, I'm Jennifer.
I'm David.
And we are Free to Learn Childminding. We're childminders in the UK. That means, for those of you outside the UK, that means that we provide a very small childcare setting in our home. And we also make videos like this one about various aspects of child development, the importance of outdoor self-directed play.
So this video is less direct advice about a certain topic, but just putting out an idea I've been thinking about for years about the pressure that early years educators put on ourselves because of the lack of respect, the low pay, the low status of this work, that we, I think, needlessly make more work for ourselves trying to prove ourselves to the wider adult society. And learning to let go of that need to prove myself over the years has been a main reason I'm still doing this work. This work is important, it is valuable, and we don't need to be making extra work for ourselves, worrying about what other people might be thinking, and chances are they're not even paying attention to what we're doing. Before we opened up, I've worked in a number of settings since 2007, and there's just just assumptions about, what will a parent think about if kids are doing XYZ, or what could a coworker possibly think about XYZ.
Yeah, like if the job isn't seen as a real legitimate profession, if we're not seen as real teachers because the children are too young, one way that a person would understandably react to that is to say, no, I am a teacher, so I'll prove that by teaching all the time. And the model for teaching is what's done for older kids in a classroom, where all the attention is on the teacher and they're sort of giving out information. They're guiding everything. It's not led by the child or the children. That model's not great for any child, but especially for very young children. And it also creates quite a lot of extra work for the educator.
Yeah, because obviously none of us remember what it was like to be a young child. And when you think of school, almost all of us went to school. Or when you think of education, you think of what you remember from school. And that's the teacher being at the front, teaching things. It's just not appropriate for young children. It's not needed. Like, you can train young kids to sit for a short amount of time, but when they're just getting on with their play in the context of good relationships and having freedom to move and play, they're developing so many under the hood, under the bonnet skills that serve people well for the rest of their lives. Like teacher-directed art activities where all the products look a little bit the same. Lisa Murphy in the US, she talks about how these are like receipts for the parents of the children. Something we can hand the parent at the end of the day and they can say, oh, isn't that cute? Like, oh, you must have really put some work in. It's proof that we put work in with them, like, because there's clearly a lot of our effort put into these projects. And as opposed to what a 3 or 4-year-old would probably make on their own, which wouldn't be as necessarily cute or recognizable to their family. That's a shame, because young children, they need the time to learn the materials and just learn the cause and effect and the process of what happens when I use too much paint or scribble something down. And they're rarely interested in like making a finished product to take home to put on the fridge. The product focused art turns into a way for educators to feel like they're proving they're doing more than just sitting around with kids.
I think some of the times here when the kids have been doing some of their best learning, in the sense that they're playing together, so they're getting a lot of important social development. They're exploring different materials. They're thinking about things to do on their own. They're learning how to sort of come up with their own ideas and figure out how to execute those ideas for the play that they want to do. And a lot of times we're just kind of hanging back. We're not doing that much. We're there so that if a child just wants to wave and say hi, come give us a hug, Or if something happens that upsets them, they can get some comfort from us. We're there for all of that. A lot of times we're just sitting there, and I do sometimes think, we're childminders, like David said. We're not being monitored by a boss. We have a lot more freedom than someone who works in a more traditional setting might have. At the same time, sometimes I even just think, like, what do our neighbors think? Imagine if a parent showed up unexpectedly and they see David and me just sitting around. But the truth is, like, in those moments, those kids are getting really good learning in, exactly the kind that is right for their age. For me, I've only ever worked in this setting, and so it's not too hard for me to let go of that. That's not very much pressure. What do my neighbors think isn't that much pressure compared to what someone working in a school might feel. But David has worked in a lot of different kinds of settings. David, do you want to talk more about what that pressure was like when you were working in other settings?
The first nursery I worked at in the States, it was official responsibility for, if you were in the 4 and 5-year-old room, to have them, or in the other rooms, to have a adult activity every morning and every afternoon, and you should plan it a month ahead and have the supplies ready. And there was no way around that. And those activities weren't necessarily bad. There was a lot less freedom in that role. And I know a lot of people, that's just the case. Like, if you're in a place, you might not have as much freedom as we have. I was really ambivalent about working with kids for, honestly, 5 years into it. In the US, I didn't need to have any qualification, any training, nothing about child development. The only reason it really started to click for me was I started to learn about child development on my own. That helped so much. It made me realize my job isn't so much to be a children's birthday party entertainer or a mini primary school teacher. Learning this stuff about child development and what supportive adults can do in these sort of environments made the job much more appealing. It helped me cut down on that need to prove myself to others. Like, I wish more of the adult world understood child development, but I accept they don't. Over the next 5-7 years, I've made my peace with that.
My observation when you started really learning about child development is that gave you a lot of joy to observe the things that you had learned in the children that you were looking after. Like, observe the ways that things you had learned about how play is beneficial to development. When you saw the kids play, it seemed like you saw those things in a new light.
Yeah.
In terms of your mindset about, like, the value of the work that you were doing, I think that was important too.
In my early days, I used to, on some level, think, our job is to get kids ready for primary school, first and foremost. And that means following group directions, following arbitrary instructions at certain times, tolerating sitting in a circle time for a short but increasing amount of time. That wasn't very enjoyable for me, but learning the way kids develop the traits and skills necessary for school and life in general is through the stuff they're already naturally hardwired to do. And yeah, it switched the way I felt about the job. Like, I used to think play was something you let kids do to blow off steam so they could tolerate coming for an adult-directed activity. But now play is just endlessly fascinating, and you see children thinking through their play, through their movement, what they're trying to figure out. And what we just hope with these videos we can help kind of flip the switch for more educators out there, because it is a very rewarding, very important job. It should be paid more, it should be respected more. In the meantime, there's no point in running ourselves ragged trying to prove ourselves to a society that doesn't understand what's going on at all. Like, they're not gonna. I still have little twinges of that in the back of my head, like, oh, we sure give them a lot of time to get on with their play. Like, how could I enrich this? Maybe I should be doing more. Kids need lots of time to move, lots of time to play, and adults who know them and have relationships with them. So we don't need to be like a party host the whole time or a watered down primary school teacher. like we're there making good relationships with them and letting them get on with things. And maybe sometimes we do guided activities or something that we are a little more directive about, but it's what's right in the moment for us and for the kids. As somebody who is only new to child minding and worked in other people's settings for a long time, a lot of this stuff is easier said than done. But even if you are in a place with less freedom, just try to find little small ways to reduce the pressure you might be putting on yourself, because you do have plenty of external pressure. If this idea of this need to prove yourself resonates, just acknowledging it and bit by bit letting go of it. And like if you're out and not, you don't have anything to prove. Like what you do is valuable. If you know child development and you know your kids, you know what's best for them, not what a hypothetical adult walking by the outside play area might think, not what a hypothetical family might think. If you're reflective, you know your kids, you know enough about child development, give yourself some grace and time and just try to, it's easier said than done, but let go of that need to prove yourself, because it's a slippery slope into making more work for yourself. And Lord knows none of us need more work for ourselves, especially if you're in a bigger setting or a school. While the challenges are real, I don't know. An educator's time and energy is very precious. So if we can learn to not squander it over what hypothetical adults might be thinking, I would love that for people. Wish we could be easier on ourselves, because we deserve it, and I think it'll be better for the kids too in the long run.